Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, two fascinating conversations. First up is Hero Electric. On the other side of a short break, Holyland Marketing is in focus. The electronic vehicle space is changing rapidly, and keeping pace with that, of course, is the kind of innovation that we're seeing here in the market. One of the front runners when it comes to this space is Hero Electric. I caught up with Naveen Munjal of Hero Electric to understand what they're doing in this space, to understand what the opportunities and trends are for entrepreneurs and what the way forward for them is. Take a listen. Naveen, thank you very much for joining us here on the show. Electric vehicles is where all the action is at. All the entrepreneurs in the automobile space. The government is very excited also about the electric vehicle space. So it's exciting to be speaking with you today. And I want to start by talking first about your journey as an entrepreneur. You have, of course, had an exposure to and been involved with multiple industries before putting all your energies behind the electric vehicle space.
Thank you, Sukanda. It's a pleasure to be here on this show today. I have indeed worked across actually quite a few different sectors. I have worked in automotive, and I've trained in Jaguar Land Rover when I started off as an intern. And then I worked in a bicycle sector. Then I worked in international marketing. I was the first one to get in BPO's call centers, one of the first ones to get in BPO call centers into India. And then the starting off electric vehicles when we did over 10 years back. So it's been an extremely interesting journey, and I've learned so much along the way from all these different industries that I've worked in. All have a different requirement, all have a different nuance. And but at this point of time, there's no other sector, no other industry that I would want to be in than where I am at this right now.
So let's talk about what is really exciting about the electric vehicle space. The government, of course, has said that by 2030 it wants at least 30% of all vehicles to be electric vehicles, and that of course includes to be electric, and that of course includes electric vehicles. That includes the space that you're in. How excited are you personally by this?
Extremely. I am now, finally it's coming to an age where it's coming to a stage where the explosion is happening. So far it was, I mean, whenever I would talk to anybody, it would be, okay, it's around the corner, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we have finally reached the end of the tunnel now, and the explosion is beginning to happen now. So I don't know whether the number is going to be 25% by the, or 30% by in the next 10 years, or is it going to be 40%, or is it going to be 10% or 100%. But the fact remains that the change which is happening is going to be so rapid that we don't expect it. So even our manufacturing, for example, when I'm talking to our people, I'm saying, okay, don't anticipate what's going to happen in the next 2 years. Anticipate what's going to happen in the next 5 years and multiply that by 5 times, because that's how fast this rapid change is going to happen. This is basically going to be a disruption of the way that we commute right now, of this whole transportation sector. And that disruption, once the ball begins rolling, it's going to be faster than any of us are anticipating.
Okay.
So we should gear up to handle the kind of volumes that we can't even imagine right now.
Where is that growth going to come from?
Multiple sectors. So there is going to be the new growth that's going to happen is from the IC sector, which is going to convert from IC to electric. So people who are sitting on the fence, who don't necessarily want an IC engine motorcycle or a scooter, but don't want a bicycle or a moped either. And so that is going to be the first wave. Second is going to be people who are looking at cost-effective solutions, because the cost economics of electric versus IC, the economics tilt in the favor of electric hugely. So there is going to come a time when people start demanding cleaner air. I mean, that's a right, that's a birthright, right? So people are going to demand clean air, clean water, clean for their children and for themselves. I mean, so many health problems that we have. Children have respiratory issues, and half the time they're wearing masks, etc. Yeah. That's not the environment that we want to bring up our children in. So if there are options available, I would rather switch to those options. So far, options have been limited and far between. But as options become more in terms of both two-wheelers, four-wheelers, cars, etc., people will begin to switch to those technologies.
Okay, I want to talk about the role of the government. It has taken a bit of time in terms of the government's own policies, whether it's quadricycles, whether it's electric vehicles. Are you happy with where we are at in terms of the policy right now?
There is a lot of ambiguity at this point of time on what's going to happen next and how soon it's going to happen or how far it's going to happen. So there's no clarity on when the policies are going to change. The problem with our policies is that they are too knee-jerk. There's no long-term policy on what's going to happen. What we do expect is when FAME 2 comes out, there is going to be a long-term policy which paves out the complete path in terms of how mobility is going to shift from IC to electric.
Sure.
The government's agenda is to push more two-wheelers into the electric space because that is the low-hanging fruit. It is easier to convert two-wheelers than it is to convert larger vehicles into electric, simply from a cost economics standpoint. Plus, 85% of India actually moves on two-wheelers.
Sure.
Now, the policies have to be multiple different angles that we have to target this.
Sure.
One is physical, and then the other is non-physical. We need the infrastructure to come in, but at the same time, we also have to have a carrot and a stick approach. We have to incentivize people to shift here into the electric vehicles. Electric vehicles, no matter what, are more expensive than IC engine at this point, but that balance of power will shift in the next couple of years. That's what's expected as the battery prices come down. But the fact remains that we are going to move away from emission vehicles. In this move away from emission vehicles, there is a certain role for the government to play. The government has a very, very important role. Education of the customer. Awareness levels are extremely poor, so educating. We know for a fact that the average driving distance in any city is no more than 30-35 kilometers in a day. And the average speeds have come down to 15-16, sub 20 kilometers in most of the cities, most of the metros. In these cities where the speeds have already come down and the ranges are again limited, electric vehicles do much better than IC engine vehicles.
Sure.
So they are much better in terms of the performance, they are better in terms of the environment, and they're better on the pocket.
Okay.
Your initial purchase price, like I said, is higher, but that as financing has already begun to happen, so that will become cheaper, dearer as well.
Some of the things that you've spoken about, the infrastructure challenges, the fact that there is the battery issues that are involved, the fact that charging stations, for instance, the policy around that is still very unclear. So those are the challenges which perhaps are known by industry. But you raised a very important point, that's as far as owning of the technology in India, and that's perhaps not enough incentive being given to research. For an entrepreneur who's watching this interview, what would you like to say by way of, what areas do you think are ripe for innovation at this point? How are you innovating at, Hero Electric? What is your approach really to disruption in the electric vehicle industry?
See, one thing we know for certain, that this electrification is going to happen. Now, whether, like I said earlier, whether it's 30%, 40%, 100% to 10%, whatever it is,
sure,
that's a percentage, that's a number game. But the fact is, we are going to transition from IC to electric in the next few years. Everybody knows that. If that is what is going to happen, then we're going to require everything. We need charging infrastructure, we need batteries to be made here, we need motors, we need controllers, we need the technology, the cloud connectivity of the vehicles, etc., smart connected vehicles, telematics, and how you use the telematics, etc. So everything has to be created. When I meet with a lot of these automotive companies, auto component companies, they talk about, okay, when your volumes reach that level, then we will start manufacturing components for you. But the fact is, it's a chicken and egg situation. Yeah. Unless you actually create that infrastructure, the volume may not increase to that same level. So for anybody who is looking to get into this sector, the whole gamut of services is going to be required, ranging from, like I said, charging. Sharing of mobility is going to be huge, and sharing for electric makes far more sense than it does for any other vehicle.
Okay.
So sharing, shared mobility, connected mobility, smart connected, there is tremendous amount of opportunities, and I'm seeing a lot of youngsters now coming out of different parts of the country, from cities, large cities, small cities, who are coming up with innovations in shared mobility and in vehicles, which are far beyond what we could earlier comprehend.
Okay.
So that change is very, very rapidly happening.
Okay, I want to talk specifically about Hero Electric as a company. A couple of things. One is, I understand you've launched a scheme where you're telling people we will buy back your old two-wheelers that are perhaps running on petrol and replace those with electric vehicles. That's the extent to which you're betting big on the electric vehicle space. Very briefly, could you talk about that?
So we've done multiple things along the way in the last 10 years to either educate the people or to give them confidence on electric vehicles and on us as a company and the industry, that this industry is here to stay. We as a company are here to stay. We've done we've trained over, I would think, more than 100,000 people, engineers, the roadside mechanics, on how to fix electric vehicles, not just ours, but any electric vehicle, so as that if anybody has a small breakdown, a minor breakdown, that vehicle can easily be fixed. The latest one that we've actually done is for replacing the old petrol and petrol vehicles on the road. So people were always having this issue of scrappage, and when they sell the vehicle, then what happens? So we said, okay, we'll buy those vehicles back for you at a certain price.
Sure.
We'll do whatever. I mean, we'll sell them into a second-hand market, or we'll scrap them. Sure. But this is one way, because those are the most polluting vehicles on the road.
Also, for the first time, I noticed that you've always depended on internal accruals, but for the first time, you've just recently, a couple of months ago, raised finance, outside finance for the first time. What's that going to be used for?
So far, it's been, like I said, it has been internally funded. So as a family, we funded it. But now what we realize is that this game is going to be much bigger than what we had earlier. We had already planned for it, actually, to be honest. We knew that this is going to explode, but we were waiting for a certain threshold, a certain time before we actually go out to raise capital from outside. Now, this is going to be used for expansion. This is going to be used for marketing. A large part of it is going to be used for creating awareness with the people.
If you had one piece of advice for entrepreneurs in this space, as we're winding down this interview, what would you like to tell them?
Start gearing up to handle large volumes. Don't think small, think big. Mobility in electrification will happen. There's no two ways about it. So you start gearing and looking at it from a bigger picture. So my advice would be straightforward. Tell the customer the way it is. I mean, every product has its own limitations and every product has its own advantages. So be very clear, and that is what we tell our dealerships and our salespeople as well. That's what we train them on. You tell the customer as it is, and you let him take the decision. You don't try and oversell him a product. Sure. That's what happens a lot of times, where people are trying to oversell products.
As I'm closing this interview, then I want to understand, what next, what is exciting in the next 2-3 years. I know that you started this interview by saying that you're telling your team, don't look at the next 2 years, look at maybe the next 5 years. But is there sort of a roadmap you can lay out for us?
So while we look at India as being a focus market for us, simply because we are here, I mean, that's a very, very strong key market for us, but we are already playing an international game. So we are already present in the international market. So we have a subsidiary which is more in the electric bicycle space, which is called A2B. That's headquartered out of UK, where we have a design center in Germany. We've got service centers in Germany, UK, and the US. And we are exporting those vehicles to Asia, to South America, Europe, America, etc. So that is in the premium end of the space. We absolutely have plans to be an international player in electric mobility. We already are there in the electric mobility internationally. Probably the widest network that we have in the EV space. But we are going to continue pushing that. But still, India remains the focus market for us. And that is the secondary market for us, the international markets.
Okay. Naveen, it's been great talking to you here on the show.
Thank you, Sugandha. Pleasure.
Thanks.
Pleasure being here.
Now for a break. On the other side, Holyland Marketing will focus. What is this highly innovative company doing? More when we come back. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight our second conversation in focus is Holyland Marketing. Starting with one store on the outskirts of Delhi to now becoming the name when it comes to the processed food market is Holyland Marketing. I spoke with them about how they're innovating in a space that's becoming so competitive, about FDI in their industry, as well as what some of the advice the Chairman and Managing Director has for our viewers. Take a listen. Thank you for your time here on the show, talking really about Holyland, Mr. Budhiraja, and for coming down to our studios. You've had a fairly long journey, and it's been a fairly interesting one, starting from a really small space here in Delhi to now having a massive footprint across the country. So let's start with what you would want our viewers to know about Holyland, about what the journey was when it came to starting it, and what you want to sort of tell them about the business.
It has been a very amazing journey. Started my business in Sadar Bazaar on a small premises. And in 1995, started my own brand as Golden Crown. And the yearly turnover at that time to start with was 2 crore minus. And today my turnover is above 200 crores. Mm-hmm. In this journey, we developed a number of products. In the beginning, we launched first 10 products. Today, I have more than 100 products. Mm. Then I was only doing business in Delhi. Now we have a presence in Pan India.
Sure. What sort of products do you have? What can you tell me?
We have a very large variety of products for each segment of the market. You see, and different regions. You see, the market is segmented in two ways, territory as well as product range. We have seafood products which in cane form like tuna, fish, sardine. We have fruit and vegetables like cherry, pineapple size fruit cocktail. Have vegetables like button mushroom, green peas, baby corn. So we have a range of products.
What do you think has perhaps helped you in this journey, going from, like you're saying, that one store, that one space in Sadar Bazaar here in Delhi to where you are now? If there are one or two things that have really helped you in this journey, what would you say that is?
It was great to have a good customer relation. That is very, very important in any business and distribution network. We developed a very nice distribution network over the years, and our dealers were quite cooperative, and we have been able to get a support with them, and they have become a part of like a family members to us, and that has really helped us to get into it.
Okay, for the SMEs and the MSMEs who are watching this interview, one or two things that you want to tell them about, like you're saying you had a very good distribution network. How did you build that? One or two key insights that you can give them in terms of how to build a strong distribution network.
You see, it is important for people to go and visit them. Like I personally would have visited all major towns in the country, and even the remote places. You see, I have been to Ladakh to develop a distributor. I have been to Mizoram to develop a distributor. I have been to Bhutan and Nepal and all nook and corners. Personally, go and see what the customer wants. And over the period, develop a rapport with the distributors, and they have become like a family member. And now they talk about next generation and discuss many views. Budhiraja, what should I do? What my children should do? And we have that sort of a relation with them.
So at one end, of course, you have a strong distribution network, which, like you're saying, you've built over the years. And on the other end, of course, you have to have customers who are excited about your product, and you're seeing repeat business, which you've seen at Holyland over the years. How do you ensure that you are understanding what the customer need is on one hand, and on the other hand also creating really a market for some of your products, helping your customers understand that these products can be available at affordable prices?
You see, basically we have just gone through the different regions, and we understand, like we go to hill stations, and then we find there that people come for trekking and they want to stay in resorts. And now to provide the food products all the time with all the varieties, they have to depend on the canned foods. So we knew what the customer wants, when he want to use it. You see, many roads in the country close in the winter season. They have to store the material for 6 months. Like many people will, even I think you will get amazed if paneer is sold in the can. Well, it is sold in can and tremendously.
What does innovation mean to you then?
Innovation wise, it is important that we must go with the taste of the consumer. We must focus entirely on the customer, what really he wants. We should get in deep into his needs.
So what's the process really like then at Holyland, from the time that you're understanding what your customers are looking at, realizing that there is a market for something, an innovative product there, and then ensuring that you're coming out with that product?
You see, when I started business, that time the fast food industry was yet to come. Very small section of the people were using the Chinese, Thai products and different things. Over the period, we saw there is a oncoming business for these. And the one reason why I put these products in my mind was India. Basically, they want something economically cheaper and a quantity of product. Like noodles, they satisfy the hunger of the customer at a lower price. These are the items we must focus on.
Speaking of customers, you have some high-profile customers, including the likes of, the Leela hotels, the Taj hotels, etc. What perhaps has helped you become a supplier of choice to them? What has been your USP that's helped you then build on that and build that base as a customer base?
You see, basically all these people are looking for a supplier who can give them a basket of product, which we do. Second thing, they were looking at the price. We must give them a competitive price. Third, they want a regularity of the product, that it should be available throughout the year. Fourth, they must looking at the standardize of the product, so that the recipe do not waver with the time. You eat today, you eat tomorrow, day after, you will get the same taste, because you are getting a standardized product. They know that this much portion I will do, and this is the recipe outcome. So these are the necessary things which they are looking for. and that is what we provide them.
Okay. How do you ensure that you are keeping your prices competitive, because India is such a price competitive market?
Yeah, there is again a big story behind it. You see, once we have focused the product, then we have now know the product. Now we go deep into it, where to get it the cheapest, and with the quality. So in this food processed food industry, we did the integration with the farmer to the consumer.
Okay.
So see, we go to the farmer, procure the product at a reasonable price, and pack it, and keep a constant watch that the product is good, hygienically packed, and it moves the chain.
So you're keeping a close eye.
Cost effectiveness. In Indian before us, the normal tendency of a manufacturer was to go to a mandi and buy certain materials. We shifted that focus. Now we go to the farmer rather than going to the mandi, and specialize in procurement policies. Lately, we see in case of button mushrooms, people grow in the summer, winter season, and then it is goes throughout the year and supplies is done. Now the people used to, farmers used to go to the mandi, sell the material. From there it used to go to the factories. Now we changed it. We have made a procurement centers. Like milk products have got chilling plants in different areas to procure it. We have installed procurement units which are refrigerated, and people, farmers come there, give them material which is shifted to the factory. So the time is not lost much, the quality is maintained, and we are in a position to give a competitive price. On that also we educate the person what size we want. You see, in trade it makes a difference. The customer wants a particular size, particular grades, that we are in a position to give them.
Okay, fair enough. Which brings me to my next question, even as we're talking about pricing, about how perhaps the tier 3 and the tier 4 markets are a market really for products like yours, because we talk about this very often on the show about why it's necessary for brands to look at the mass market. What's your own thoughts on that?
You see, correct. Everyone should look at the mass market, because you see that I have got experience out of this. Like we earlier used to sell asparagus. Now it is very niche product. The only related to few European customers who go to 5-star and where they will buy. The volume will be very negligible.
Sure.
But if a product is used by the local people and the local taste is matched, there is a mass marketing.
Sure.
And the rural population today has a lot of money. B-grade towns are more powerful because their expenses are less. The incomes have grown over the period. They have developed really good purchasing power. Unlike a person in a city, he earns a lot, so he spends a lot because the cost of living is high. In big towns, they earn good, but the expenses are less. They have more disposable income in comparison to the metro towns.
Sure.
They have really good purchasing power. And the focus of all entrepreneurs should be to be towns.
Sure. I wish you all the best in that.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming down to our studios. Completely out of time on the show. If you have any feedback for us, here's how you let us know. leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com is our email ID. Get in touch with us on social media. Tweet at me personally at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now is our official Twitter handle. Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now is our Facebook page. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.